Why are you always doing this? It's like you don't even care about my feelings.
That's not true. I do care, but you never listen to me.
David threw the blanket aside and sat up, his face tight with anger. Angela, what is this again? Every night it's the same excuse. I'm tired, I'm not in the mood, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. Angela turned to face him, her eyes sharp. And what do you want me to do, David? Kill myself? Marriage doesn't mean you must climb on me every single night. I'm a human being, not a machine. David stood up and paced the room, running his hand over his head. His chest was heaving. You don't understand, do you? This is how I am built. I need it, Angela. That's how I feel close to you. Why can't you just give me what I want? Angela sat up slowly, her wrapper falling from her shoulder. Her voice trembled with both anger and pain. What about what I want, David? You think I don't love you? I cook for you, I laugh with you, I care for you, but every night you turn love into pressure. You make me feel like I'm failing as a wife just because I don't have your kind of desire. David stopped pacing and glared at her. Failing as a wife? Angela, do you even know what failure is? A wife who keeps denying her husband, what do you call that? Angela's eyes filled with tears. She grabbed her pillow and held it tightly against her chest. I call it being married to a selfish man. You think sex is the only way to love me? What about listening to me? What about understanding me? But no, you only see your need. The silence that followed was heavy. David clenched his fists, fighting the urge to say more. Angela lay back down, turning her back to him. The distance between them on the bed felt like a wide river. In that moment, both of them were angry, both of them were hurt, but beneath all the shouting, the truth was clear. They loved each other deeply. They just didn't know how to make that love survive their differences. And so, another night ended in silence. The next morning, David sat at the dining table, staring into his cup of tea. He hadn't slept well. Angela moved around the kitchen, her face blank, avoiding his eyes. Finally, David spoke. Angela, is this how we're going to live? Fighting every night? Angela sighed and placed his plate of bread and eggs in front of him. No, David, but you refuse to understand me. You want sex every night, but that's not who I am. It doesn't mean I don't love you. David leaned forward, his voice softer now, but heavy with frustration. Then how do I know you love me? Angela, when you turn me down, I feel like you're pushing me away, like you don't even want me near you. Angela sat down opposite him, her hands trembling slightly. That's not true. I do want you near me, David, but closeness is more than sex. Sometimes I just want you to hold me, talk with me, make me laugh. Not every night has to end on the bed. David shook his head and let out a bitter laugh. You talk as if I'm asking for the impossible. You're my wife, Angela, my wife. If I can't have you, then who else am I supposed to turn to? Angela's eyes widened. Don't you dare say that to me. Don't even think it. If you ever go outside this marriage because of this, then you will destroy everything we've built. The words hung in the air like a curse. David went silent. Angela pushed her chair back and stood up, her voice breaking. I love you, David. I love you more than anyone. But if this is how our marriage is going to be, then I don't know how long I can endure it. She walked into the bedroom and shut the door. David sat frozen at the table, his food untouched. He buried his face in his hands. He loved Angela with all his heart, but his craving was eating their marriage alive. 2 weeks later, their marriage looked like a strange dance. Love in the daylight, war in the dark. In the afternoons, David and Angela laughed like the happiest couple. They went shopping together, teased each other in the car, even cooked side by side in the kitchen. Sometimes David would sneak up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Angela would giggle and push him playfully. But when night came, the atmosphere changed. One evening, after dinner, David reached for Angela while they were watching TV. "Come on, let's go inside," he whispered. Angela frowned. "David, not tonight. I'm tired." David leaned back, annoyed. "Tired again? Angela, do you even realize how many times you've told me that this week?" Angela turned off the TV and faced him. "So what if I'm tired? Can't a wife rest? Why does everything have to end in bed with you?" David's voice rose. "Because that's how I feel loved. You think cooking food and laughing with me is enough? At night, you treat me like a stranger." Angela stood up sharply, her voice trembling. "And you think forcing me into something I don't enjoy will make me love you more? David, you're pushing me away." The argument ended in silence. Angela went to bed early, lying with her back to him. David lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his body burning with frustration. Yet, the next morning, they smiled at each other like nothing happened. Angela kissed his cheek before he left for work, and David called her at lunchtime just to hear her voice. It was a cycle. Sweet love by day, sour fights by night. David began to wonder how long their love could survive this pattern. Days turned into weeks, and the quarrels only grew sharper. Angela no longer argued as much. Instead, she withdrew. At night, she would lie down first, pulling the blanket up to her shoulders. By the time David came in, she was already facing the wall, pretending to be asleep. "Angela," David whispered one night, tapping her shoulder. She didn't respond. "Angela, I know you're not sleeping. Why are you doing this to me?" Angela shifted slightly, but kept her eyes closed. "David, please, I don't have the strength tonight. Just let me be." David sat up in frustration, his voice rising. "Every night, it's the same thing. You don't even try anymore. You'd rather turn your back than face me. Is this how a wife treats her husband?" Angela finally turned around, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And is this how a husband loves his wife? By nagging her every night until she feels like a failure? I'm not a sex toy, David. I'm your partner." The words cut deep. David had no reply. He lay back on his side of the bed, staring into the darkness. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. It filled the room, spreading to the morning, and lingered through the day. At breakfast, Angela placed his food on the table without a word. David ate quietly, not looking at her. In the evenings, they sat in the living room like strangers, each glued to their phone. The laughter that once filled their home had been replaced by a wall of silence, and behind that silence, love was suffocating. David began spending more time outside, sometimes staying late at work or hanging out with friends. Angela noticed, but pride kept her from saying anything. They were still together under the same roof, but in truth, they were already drifting apart. On Sunday morning, David and Angela stepped out of their house dressed like royalty. David wore a crisp white caftan, while Angela dazzled in a flowing Ankara gown. Their neighbors admired them as they walked to the car, hands lightly brushing against each other. At church, they smiled, greeted everyone warmly, and sat side by side like the perfect couple. When the choir sang, David placed his arm around Angela's shoulder. People whispered, "See how they love each other? God really blessed them." But no one knew what waited behind closed doors. That same night, after the long day, Angela slipped into her nightdress and crawled into bed. David joined her, trying to kiss her neck. "Angela, tonight, please, I need you." She froze. "David, I said I'm not in the mood." He pulled back sharply. Not in the mood again? Angela, do you even realize what you're doing to this marriage? Angela sat up, her voice low but firm. And do you realize what you are doing to me? You're draining me, David. I love you, but you make me dread the nights. That's not how love should feel. David left bitterly. Funny. By day, you smile with me, post us online like the perfect couple, and act like everything is fine. But at night, the truth shows you don't even want me as your husband. Angela's eyes welled up. Don't say that. You know I love you. I just don't love sex the way you do. David stood up and paced the room, his voice shaking. Then what am I supposed to do? Pretend I don't feel this way? Angela, I'm a man. You can't starve me like this and expect me to keep smiling. The argument ended with Angela in tears and David storming out of the bedroom. The next morning, when they stepped out of the house again, they smiled at the neighbors, hand in hand. Nobody could see the storm raging inside their walls. They were perfect in public, broken in private. The silence and fake smiles didn't last long. Their house was becoming a ticking bomb. One evening, after dinner, David leaned against the doorway of the kitchen, watching Angela wash the plates. Angela, he said, his tone sharp, how long do you plan to keep denying me? Because I'm losing my patience. Angela dropped the plate into the rack and turned slowly. David, stop talking like that. This is marriage, not prison. You can't bully me into giving you my body whenever you want. David folded his arms across his chest. And you can't keep refusing me and expect me to stay sane. I'm your husband, Angela. I have rights, too. Angela's face darkened. Rights? So that's what this is about? You think marriage is about using me whenever you feel like it. What about my own feelings, my own rights? David raised his voice, frustration boiling over. You don't understand. You never try to understand. I crave you, Angela. I crave you every night. That's how I was made. And instead of meeting me halfway, you turn me into a beggar in my own house. Angela's voice cracked, tears threatening to fall. And you've turned me into a prisoner in mine. Do you know what it feels like to dread bedtime? To feel like my worth is measured only by how often I open my legs for you? Is that love, David? Is that what we promised each other? The words hit David like a slap. For a moment, he softened, guilt flashing in his eyes. But pride pushed him back. You're twisting everything. All I'm asking is for you to meet my needs. Why is that so hard? Angela shook her head, her shoulders slumping. And all I've been asking is for you to love me in other ways too. But you don't listen. You just keep pressing, pressing, pressing. The room fell silent. Both of them were breathing hard, as if they had just fought a physical battle. Despite all the shouting matches and long silences, the truth remained. David and Angela loved each other. That was the hardest part. On a Saturday morning, David surprised Angela by making breakfast. He placed toast, fried eggs, and tea on a tray and carried it into the bedroom. Good morning, my queen, he said with a shy smile. Angela looked up from where she sat on the bed, folding clothes. Her heart softened. David, you made this for me? Yes, he said, placing the tray on her lap. I know we've been fighting a lot. I don't want us to keep living like enemies. Angela smiled faintly, her chest warming. She took a bite of the toast and whispered, Thank you. For a moment, it felt like the old days. Light laughter, playful teasing, warmth between them. They even went shopping together later that day, holding hands in the market, picking vegetables, laughing over small jokes. To anyone watching, they looked inseparable. But that night, when David reached for her in bed, Angela turned away. David, please, not tonight. His smile on his face vanished instantly. His jaw tightened. There it is again. Back to square one. Angela sat up, tired and angry. David, must every good day end like this? Can't you just be content with what we shared today? David snapped. And what about me? What about my needs? Do you even think about me, Angela, or am I just your roommate? Angela's eyes filled with tears. I do think about you. Every single day. I just wish you loved me enough to understand me. David groaned and lay back on the bed staring at the ceiling. His body ached with desire, but his heart ached even more with frustration. Angela curled up on her side of the bed, hugging her pillow. She loved him deeply, but she was beginning to resent the man she once adored. They were trapped in a cruel circle. The more David demanded, the more Angela resisted. The more Angela resisted, the more David demanded. Love was still alive, but resentment was slowly poisoning it. The tension between David and Angela had been building for weeks, like a storm waiting to break. One evening, after a long day at work, David came home unusually excited. Angela, come, he said, pulling her hand. Let's go out tonight. Just you and me. We'll eat suya, take a walk, and maybe, he winked. Angela sighed and pulled her hand back. David, I'm not in the mood. I'm tired. David's smile fell. His eyes darkened. Tired? You're always tired. Angela, do you even see me as your husband anymore, or am I just your roommate? Angela frowned, her chest tightening. David, don't start. But he had already started. His voice rose. I gave up so much to marry you. My friends laughed at me when I said I would settle down. I told them Angela is different. Angela is special. And now look at me, chasing my own wife like a beggar. Angela's anger flared. Stop acting like I don't give you anything. I clean, I cook, I support you. Is marriage only about sex to you? David slammed his fist on the table, making the plates rattle. Yes, sex is part of it. Or do you want me to start looking outside? Because I swear, Angela, I'm close to losing control. The words hit her like a slap. Tears stung her eyes. So that's it? You want to sleep with other women? Go ahead, David. If that's what will make you happy, go! David's chest heaved, his face hard. Don't push me, Angela. Don't you dare push me. Angela burst into tears, her voice shaking. And don't you dare threaten me with cheating. If you want to ruin this marriage, go ahead. But know this, if you step out, you'll never get me back. The house fell into a heavy silence. David stood there, breathing hard, his fists clenched. Angela sat on the sofa, sobbing into her palms. It was the worst fight they had ever had. The words they threw at each other hung in the air like poison, impossible to take back. That night, David slept on the couch. Angela cried herself to sleep in the bedroom. The storm had finally broken. The night after their biggest fight, the house was heavy with silence. Angela sat at the edge of the bed, staring at her packed makeup bag. For the first time, the thought crossed her mind. Maybe I should leave. David walked in quietly, his face pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Instead, he sat on the chair, his head buried in his hands. I didn't mean to, he whispered, his voice shaking. Angela, I didn't mean to hurt you. Angela's chest tightened. She loved him. That was the truth. But the pain of last night was still fresh. David, she said softly, love isn't supposed to feel like this. Every night we fight. Every night you look at me like I'm failing you. I can't breathe anymore. David looked up, his eyes red. So what are you saying? That you'll leave me? Her lips trembled, tears filling her eyes. I don't know, but if this continues, I might not have a choice. For the first time, fear struck David's heart. He realized the woman he loved could actually walk away. Angela couldn't hold it in anymore. She met with her best friend, Kemi, at a small cafe. The moment Kemi saw her swollen eyes, she asked, Angela, what's happening at home? Angela broke down, tears slipping down her cheeks. She told her everything, the fights, the third woman, the endless pressure. Kemi held her hand firmly. My sister, you need to protect your peace. A man who drags you into fire will only burn you. Think carefully. Is this marriage worth your life? Meanwhile, David was also with his old school friend, Kunle. Kunle shook his head after hearing David's side. You're losing a good woman, my guy. You think this new arrangement makes you a king? One day, you'll regret it. Don't let lust destroy your home. Both Angela and David sat separately that night, hearing their friends' words echoing in their minds. For the first time, they both realized maybe their marriage was slipping too far away. The days after their friend's advice felt like walking on broken glass. David and Angela no longer shouted, but the silence between them was louder than any quarrel. Meals were eaten in silence. Angela would place his food on the table, then retreat to the bedroom without a word. David, in turn, would finish eating, leave the dishes untouched, and sit on the couch staring at the TV that never seemed to entertain him anymore. At night, the distance grew worse. They lay in the same bed, but worlds apart. Angela's back was always turned, her body stiff like a wall. David stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, his chest aching with unspoken words. Sometimes their eyes met in the morning. Both wanted to say something, anything, but pride held their tongues. The love they once shared was still there, hidden under layers of hurt, but resentment was stronger. They were no longer husband and wife. They were strangers sharing a roof. It happened on a rainy night. David came home late, smelling of alcohol. Angela was sitting in the living room, her arms folded, eyes red from crying. She had cooked his favorite meal, but he hadn't touched it. Where are you coming from? She asked in a low voice. David dropped his keys on the table and sighed. Don't start, Angela. I'm tired. Her eyes widened. Don't start? After everything she had endured, after months of humiliation, watching her husband with another woman under her own roof? You're tired, she said bitterly. I am the one who should be tired of being disrespected, tired of being used only when you want a child, tired of being your wife in name but not in heart. David clenched his fists. So what do you want me to do? You never enjoy me, Angela. You push me away. I only tried to find a solution. A solution? She cut in, her voice shaking. A solution that brought another woman into our bed, that gave her what belongs to me, and now she is pregnant while I am empty. Tell me, David, is this the marriage you promised me? The words hung heavy in the air. Rain beat against the windows, thunder rolling outside. For the first time, David couldn't answer. His pride, his excuses, his justifications all collapsed under her pain. Angela stood up, tears streaming down her face. I cannot do this anymore, David. If this is what marriage means to you, then maybe we are finished. The room went silent. That was the breaking point. The house was empty without Angela. Her perfume no longer lingered in the living room. Her laughter no longer echoed in the kitchen. David sat on the edge of the bed at night, staring at the empty space where he used to lie. Sleep refused to come. Guilt sat heavy on his chest, pressing harder with each passing day. He tried to distract himself with work, with friends, with anything. But the silence of the house haunted him. Every plate, every photo frame, every corner screamed her name. Across town, Angela was not doing any better. She stayed with her cousin, pretending she was fine. But each night when the lights went off, she curled into the bed and cried silently into her pillow. Memories of their early days together stabbed her heart. Their playful cooking, their silly jokes, the way David used to hold her hand in public as if he never wanted to let go. She still loved him. That was the worst part. Love was not the problem. Desire was. His need had swallowed their joy, and her resistance had built a wall she couldn't break. Sometimes she picked up her phone, tempted to call him, to hear his voice, to ask if he missed her too. But each time, pride and pain stopped her. David also reached for his phone countless times, typing her name, drafting a message, "Come back home, Angela, I can't do this without you." But his thumb always hovered above the send button, then dropped the phone back on the table. Two hearts, both bleeding, two people, both still in love, but separated by anger, silence, and the memory of words that could never be taken back. Days turned into weeks, and David realized he was losing more than a wife. He was losing himself. Work didn't excite him anymore, food tasted like sand, and even his friends noticed the emptiness in his eyes. One evening, he went out drinking with a colleague. After too many bottles, the colleague laughed and said, "David, you had the perfect woman, but your stubbornness pushed her away. Women are not toys, my brother. They are hearts to be cared for." Those words struck David like lightning. He staggered home that night, and for the first time, he admitted the truth. He had been selfish. His desires had controlled him, and he let them ruin his marriage. On the other side, Angela also faced her own lesson. Living with her cousin was not easy. She missed the comfort of her home, the smell of David's cologne, and even his annoying habits. She realized that running away solved nothing. Problems followed you until you faced them. One Sunday morning, she sat in church and tears streaming down her face as the pastor preached about forgiveness. "A marriage without forgiveness," he said, "is like a tree without roots. It will fall at the slightest wind." Angela wiped her tears and whispered a prayer. "Lord, give me wisdom. Teach me how to love without fear and forgive without pride." That evening, she wrote in her journal, "Maybe our pain is not the end. Maybe it is a lesson. A painful one, but a lesson still. If David learns to change, and if I learn to forgive, maybe, just maybe, love can find us again." The papers were signed on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Neither David nor Angela said much at the courthouse. Their eyes did all the speaking. David's gaze was heavy with regret, Angela's with quiet sorrow. They both knew it wasn't a lack of love that ended them, it was their failure to manage it. On his way home, David drove past the little cafe where he first asked Angela out. He parked for a moment, memories flooding his mind. Her laughter, the way she stirred her tea absent-mindedly, how her smile lit up his darkest days. He pressed his forehead to the steering wheel and whispered, "I ruined us." Angela, sitting alone in her new apartment, opened her photo album. She stopped at a picture from their honeymoon, both of them grinning, sand stuck on their feet, holding each other like nothing could come between them. She traced David's face with her finger and murmured, "We had it all, and we lost it." Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. They didn't hate each other, they never could. What hurt most was that love remained, but broken, shattered by pride, impatience, and unspoken fears. Their friends often asked, "What really happened? You two were perfect." But neither David nor Angela ever gave an answer. Some truths were too painful to explain. And so their story became a quiet reminder that love alone is never enough. Without compromise, without patience, without seeking help, even the deepest love can wither. David and Angela would forever love each other, but separately.